Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll bring this evening's Middleton Select Board meeting for Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. To remind everybody, the meeting is being recorded, so if you can, if you're able to, speak loudly and firmly for those that are listening and viewing remotely. Without further ado, we'll move on to number one item for business, and that would be the description of the warrants. We have a number of those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given that we're straddling the fiscal year, there are a couple more than typical. I'll try to be brief because I have a feeling most of these people here tonight aren't here to hear about the warrant. Notwithstanding, you have before you warrant number 2426 dated June 27, 2024 on the payroll side of things, totaling in at $1.3 million. You'll see about $20,000 in overtime for the fire department. That does pop up in the year-end transfers in a small amount, so they did slide in there and managed to cover it in department. Something we've been watching for the past few cycles. On the bills payable side of things, a little over $1 million. You'll see about $50,000 for the Peabody Street Bridge. And then additionally, facilities project warrant 39, $70,000. Chunk of that for the commissioning agent, but also work that they've been doing through the month of May 2024. For warrant 2427 dated June 30th, 2024. Once again, just the very end of the fiscal year there. On the payroll side of things, you'll see a little over $500,000. For bills payable, a little under $1 million, including about $14,000 in attorney fees, $5,000 to wrap up and complete the painting of the exterior of the Council on Aging. They've had that long-standing ramp project out there, so good job to their team for wrapping that up. About $28,000 for the North Shore IT Collaborative, our Q4 installment to wrap up the year, as well as some insurance premiums for the schools and for the town side of things through the Treasurer's Office. And lastly, you have warrant number 2501 dated July 11th, 2024. This is the first complete warrant for this fiscal year. On the payroll side of things, just shy of $200,000 overtime across the board for police, fire, MELD, DPW. So just something that we're keeping an eye on. Also on the bills payable side of things, about $3.4 million. Pretty large, but it's always worth noting to kick off the fiscal year, there are some annual contributions that we make to various pieces. And so to highlight some of those, under accounting, you'll see, for example, $344,000 for property and casualty, workers' comp premium, and our insurance premium. You'll also see the library, for example, $25,000 for the MVLC membership renewal, which is an annual thing. Police, about $8,000 for various membership renewals, and then us is about a $2.5 million payment. That's a ERRS assessment. That's the Essex Regional Retirement System. So a lot of ground to cover there, but that makes up warrant 2426, 2427, 2501, and facilities project warrant 39.
Thank you. Any discussion? Or?
I have a question on the police where it says 11,000 insurance repair. Is that something we get reimbursed from the insurance for, or what is that?
Yep. So that's something that was reimbursed through Maya. It was I believe a rear-ended vehicle.
So we get reimbursed.
Yep. Right.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Could you speak up a little louder so that people on Zoom can hear you?
I absolutely can.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve warrants 2426, 2427, 2501, and facilities project 39.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
We have to take a roll call since
Oh,
we're
I'm
on
sorry,
Zoom.
Brian, not here. I'm sorry, yeah, we'll need a roll call vote if, Deb, if you would call for a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Brian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
And myself is a yes.
All right, passed unanimously. We've all had a chance to open up and look at the open session minutes for June 18th and the executive session for the same date, June 18th. Were there any questions or discussions on those?
Oh, you gotta say no.
Move to accept as presented.
A second?
Second.
A motion and a second. No questions. All in roll call vote, please, Deb.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
and myself is a yes.
All right, passed unanimously. Next, Town Administrator with updates and reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some notes. Our team is exploring options for the Mill Pond Dam. As we've expressed in prior meetings, this is a privately held piece of property, but we are following up with the Ipswich River Watershed Authority. They recommended exploring the fiscal 25 cycle for the dam and seawall repair grant program. Conversations with DCR are ongoing. I will note that is one of the grants that is highlighted as part of, not to tie it back to the MBTA zoning piece, but that was a prominent one that I believe was Middleton had clawed back. But it's something, same thing, we'll still go for it, we'll see what happens. And there's a lot of details kind of shaking out there, so we'll take a look. Side one of the Peabody Street Bridge has reached substantial completion. We're on target to complete that project within this construction cycle. With the impending expiration of our Verizon license, the Cable Advisory Committee will be meeting to discuss the terms of an upcoming agreement. Thank you to Jackie for coordinating that effort. The contract for the Boston Street Sidewalk project has been finalized and sent off to the Commonwealth for signatures. The final bid came in at $394,000 and change. That figures within our budget. And the notice of award was issued to the Commonwealth Construction and Consulting Company, LLC of Woburn, Mass. So that project will be happening this summer. The town of Danvers has implemented a level 5 water restriction, if you didn't hear, so that allows for watering by cans and handheld hoses between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. Jackie and I will be attending the MMMA summer meeting next week to discuss the development of strategic plans and also select board retreat planning for visioning and goal setting purposes, something that we're going to look into. So we'll keep you posted on that. The ZBA is set to wrap up the Angelica's 40B approvals at their 7/25/24 meeting coming up later in the month. So it seems like most of the details are ironed out. You never know, but it seems like it's pretty set at this point. We continue to keep an eye on it. The Stormwater Group will begin meeting next month to develop a path forward. We had talked about in previous meetings where the line of delineation is or where the delineation is between planning, zoning, conservation in regards to stormwater and permitting. So now that we have a planner on board, we're going to be reviewing that as a group along with legal counsel, potentially trying to seek out a consultant or at minimum comparing what other communities do just to make sure things don't fall between the gaps there. We have reviewed some candidates for the administrative assistant vacancy in our office, but we've been really struggling to find somebody whose skill set kind of matches our organizational needs. So what Jackie and I have been doing is taking a hard look at the job description as it is and trying to potentially rework something that may be more fitting between Jackie and I's existing skill sets to find something that might be a better fit there. So we're going to bring a proposal before you, the board, at your next meeting in August to talk about that a little bit, get some of your input and see if we can think of something that would work there. But in the meantime, thank you especially to Jackie for keeping some of those items afloat. And then lastly, municipal building project update. Early abatement work has begun at the clubhouse. They're really going to be getting into it in earnest later in the week with a long-term goal of demoing that sometime in the next month or so. They've also started prep work for the footings for the public safety building. They're doing both the town hall and the public safety building in tandem, but at various points over the course of the project, one building is going to be a little bit ahead of the other. So the footing piece anyway, they're starting with public safety. And then it's also worth noting they are going to be collaborating with MELD to post cameras on the temporary light post out there so that we can get a time lapse of the project up on the website so that citizens can pull it up and check in on progress and see how the building is coming along over the course of the project. So it'll be, I believe, a 2-minute video condensed, which towards the end should be pretty impressive. You'll see them get the whole thing up in 2 minutes. So just something to keep an eye out for. Okay.
Good.
Thank you. Any questions or anything?
I had two. So you mentioned the Angelica's project on the 25th, but the ZBA's meeting this week, that won't be on the agenda for this week?
Yep, so it was supposed to be on for the 11th, but they weren't able to get quorum. So they're going to be continuing that, and it'll be advertised accordingly. It seems that the word didn't get out, so we'll make sure people are aware.
Okay, one other question. Is the generator issue at the new municipal complex all settled and done with?
Close to
Everyone's in
it.
agreement?
Close to it, yeah. So there was one outstanding piece where the area that there was agreement, we just wanted to confirm that Fish and Wildlife was agreeable to it because of the general rough proximity in relation to the eagle's nest that's on the site. So we did receive verbal confirmation from the federal government that as described, it would be okay. We just have to get a formal plan into them. So what we're going to be doing is getting that official in writing determination, bringing it back to the building committee. The building committee will give it their final official blessing, but people are in agreement about where they're proposing to put it behind the public safety facility.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, anything else?
That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'd like to move on to our public comment section of the evening, and I believe we have someone here for public comment. You just want to identify yourself and let us know your address?
My name is Robert Quinn. My address is 37 Peachy Circle.
Hold on, Mr. Quinn, I'll help you. Thank you, Mark.
Put that, and then I'm gonna put this.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Okay, 2 weeks ago, I was coming out of the dump. I live right off of that, on Peachy Circle. I was coming out of the dump, coming down here, coming off of the playing field, and cars are parked along this side, which they do quite a bit. And there was a little girl, 3 years old, roughly, and she was in between parked cars coming out. Scared the daylights out of me. I stopped my car, and I stopped the cars coming in. There was a truck coming in, I stopped him. I hollered for a parent, whose child is this? Someone came out, got the child, brought him in. But it scared me and saying, what can we do about this? And all these cars parked along this end of the thing, and it's constant. It's every week that this happens.
Can I ask you, Robert, where's the fenced-in area of the park, of the play field?
Fenced in
It's all
area
fenced in
is
there
right
with the
here.
signs? Yeah, okay.
But along with the fenced-in area is 3 gates that are constantly left open.
Yep.
And this child must have gone out that gate,
Yeah,
then got between the cars and was coming out.
right. So the dump is at the top left of your drawing?
There's cars parked along
No,
here.
the dump is at the top left of your drawing?
The transfer
The
station?
entrance, the gate to the it is, okay,
Here's the dump.
I just wanted to be sure, yep,
Okay.
okay,
So we stopped, we got the parent,
good.
took the child, but we said, wait a minute, what can happen here? So what we did here is we have 24 parking spaces, 28 here, 13 down here. That isn't even enough. We come down here to Lot A, that is very muddy. It really couldn't handle much more than about 10 cars. So what we want to do is have parking signs at the beginning of next season. We want to have parking signs, hats with something parking. So there's parking them up here and dedicating spots
Okay.
in here so they're backing in. In this case, they're going to drive in and they're going to be on the grass unless someone says no. They're going to be driving in and they're going to be pulling out. So
Okay,
they're not having a problem there.
all right, well, we're gonna have to bring this up with our public safety, and where you're talking the parking, we'll bring in the recreation committee as well,
Yes.
and see if we can, if there's something we can do to address this, okay?
Okay, and we want to take the signs that are down low. In other words, the parent when the child got outside that gate.
Okay, that would be up to the recreation committee, because those are advertising signs that they're, have.
Okay.
Just saying,
paid
but,
for.
Wouldn't see the child.
I know.
When the child is outside, they wouldn't see the child.
no.
There's a problem.
So that's
Take
what
the
we'll-
sign, move the signs to the upper level
Yep,
and that would clear it up. At least the parent now could turn around and see the child.
right. All right. Thank you very much.
I think that's it.
Appreciate it. No, like I said, we'll bring it up with the public safety and public works to some extent, but certainly recreation committee as well.
Okay,
because,
and sometime in the
because that's going to
future-
impact them.
If you get to Lot A, 33,000 can seat 8 in the back, and that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You want
Mr.
your
Quinn?
easel?
You want your easel?
I'll get your easel for you.
Oh,
I got it.
okay.
Yeah, just watch.
I'll meet you at the door.
I'll get the chair, Jim.
No, I'll get it in a minute.
I got it, right here.
All right.
Anybody else?
Next, if we can move on, we'll get
Wait
a,
a minute.
Nope, another public comment.
I'm sorry. Step right up.
Sorry.
Diane Anderson, no worries. Diane Anderson, 7 Boston Street, Middleton. I have a question. I know we're having a presentation today about Memorial Hall by, is it Luz or Luz Studio? Will there be public comment time after their presentation about the studio Luz? Will we be able to comment?
I don't see why not.
Yes? Perfect.
Keep it, I mean, we know that there was public involvement prior to us getting to this point.
Yes.
Just for viewing audience to know, but certainly,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now, if we could, move on to the next one, which would be a department head update from our health director, Tracy Mello. Tracy, please.
You can take a seat at the table if you want.
Do you want to go over there? I don't have a chair over here, I'm sorry.
But you know what? I can just stand. It's only
Just raise the voice.
around.
Can you
So-
be loud for the Zoom, please?
Yes, I'll be loud for the Zoom. Good evening, Select Board members, and thank you for having me speak tonight on behalf of the Opioid Overdose Awareness Committee. I'm here to ask for your support for the Opioid Overdose Awareness Vigil at the end of August. The Opioid Overdose Awareness Committee is planning to plant 2,125 purple flags. The number of flags represents the number of opioid overdose deaths in Massachusetts last year. These flags will be planted across the lawns at the library and at 2 South Main. The Richardsons and the librarian have agreed to let us plant these flags. The fire chief and his staff are going to be wearing purple t-shirts during the month of August, and purple is the color that represents the opioid overdose awareness. Our goal is to foster understanding of this devastating disease and remove the stigma associated with it. Please help us reach these goals by supporting Middleton's first opioid overdose awareness vigil. We'll be providing more information about the vigil on the town webpage.
Tracy, do you have a date? Did I miss it?
No, so we are going to discuss this. It's actually the 31st, but because it is Labor Day weekend,
Okay.
we were just going to discuss those options there.
Okay.
Flags will be planted on a Wednesday, and it'll be on, visual for like a week.
Very good. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
All right. So our next item on the agenda is our joint meeting with the Middleton Library Board of Trustees to appoint a new trustee for the library.
I'm going to move to the audience since I am one of the candidates.
Very good, thank you. If I can invite the library board up to take a seat up here on, to the right.
Susan, if
You want them over here, right, Rick?
Yep, well, to there, right? Yep.
You look funny over there.
There you go.
Do you want me to slide the mic to you? Do you want me to slide the mic? You're welcome.
We can pull that one down the very end and put it between Susan and,
She's got Jackie's on it. You're welcome.
And this will pick you up. The two will pick you up just fine.
Great,
But
thank
just,
you.
if you can speak up for the laptop, that's where Brian is.
You'll figure it out.
Give a moment to get settled. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to first thank the candidates for their interest in getting on the Board of Trustees for the library, and I will announce them as they are tonight in alphabetical order. Michelle Dearborn, Tamara Gatos, Rachel Nemeth, hope I said that right, Rachel Nemeth, Costa Prince-Takis, and Kyle Smith. So thank each and every one of you for taking the interest to volunteer your time for the town, in particular the library. All right, so I will, from the first one would be Michelle Dearborn. If I could ask you to, should you wish, would you like to speak on your own behalf and let us know, what you have for interest and what you might be able to bring to the Board of Trustees for appointment?
Thank you, sir. My name is Michelle Dearborn. I live on Mill Street in Middleton. I've lived in town for the past 30-plus years. My husband's family has grown up in this town, and my children use the library throughout their lives and continue to do so. Now that my children are grown, I want to give back to the town, and I want to give back in a way that I feel that I can contribute. I think it's important that the library, their mission and their vision is upheld by both the staff and by the board. And I feel like the board should have some history and some members who have been a part of the community for many decades, as I have been. And I feel like I can offer some of my abilities. I have been a nurse for 39 years. I have been held management positions for more than half of that time, and I feel like my skill set would match with what the board now has.
Would you happen to see any, we'll ask this for everybody, I don't know how applicable it is for this, but any conflicts that you see at all in your career or in your family or like that to be appointed by the board?
I don't feel like I have any conflicts, no.
Thank you very much.
Could I ask
I'm sorry, yep, sure.
I have a question. Brian usually asks this question, but I'll ask it this time. This is an appointed position till the next election. If you were appointed, would you be planning on running for the position next year?
I would.
Okay.
Did you guys have any questions from the library board?
No, not yet. Anybody?
I don't at this moment.
at this moment I don't, but thank you very, very much.
I do have a question. Have you attended any of the library trustee meetings?
I have. I've only attended one in person. I usually attend them on Zoom.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, right? I thought you did.
It kind of popped
Go
in my
ahead.
head. So I guess my concern is, in general with the library is our budget. It's a big issue. And I just wondered if in your management role or anything, did you have any budget stuff going on?
Absolutely. I was responsible for two separate departments, and I was responsible for the budget of running both of those departments, both the development along with the business team, and maintaining that budget throughout my time as a nurse manager.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. The next candidate is Tamara Gatos. You can come up and fill us in on your interests, any qualifications, and just who you are.
Do you mind if I read?
Go right ahead.
That's what the library's all about.
Do it by memory.
Right? So my name is Tamara Gatus.
have lived in Fuller Pond Village for about 10 years now, but I lived and raised my children in Boxford for 24 years, so I'm very familiar with the Tri-Town. I earned my master's degree in library and information science in 2004, specializing in archives management. I worked for a rare bookseller for 3 years on a project at Northeastern University, and then at the Phillips Library at the City Essex Museum for 13 years. I was their sole archivist, making their manuscripts available to researchers, cataloging books and manuscripts, serving researchers, training interns and volunteers. I wrote a successful grant, plus a few others that weren't successful, where I was responsible for the hiring of an assistant, managing the budget, keeping the project on track. I also managed the supplies budget and wrote policies and user manuals regarding manuscript processing and cataloging. I was laid off in 2020 during the pandemic. Later that year, I took a job at the Haverhill Public Library, organizing their special collections material and standardizing their procedures. I worked with donors to bring in new material and with the assistant director updating their website. After a year, I took a consulting job with the Lawrence Public Library, advising the special collections librarian on what rare books to deaccession and how to rewrite their policies. In 2023, I consulted with the Newberry Town Library on how to manage their local history room, which was in disarray. I advised the director on collection development, processed manuscripts, wrote reports, and trained a part-time librarian. I am currently the outreach archivist for the New England Yearly Meeting of Quakers, which is a very part-time remote position. I'm currently serving on the Middleton Cultural Council and have worked for Eileen Twist on election activities since 2020. Last summer, I worked in the assessor's office, filling in for the deputy assessor while she was out on maternity leave. I've enjoyed getting to know people in town and how the town government works. I'm interested in serving as library trustee because I think my expertise and experience can help the library better serve the people of Middleton. And as to the question about would I choose to run in May of 25, I'm not sure. I have to think about it. I'm a little bit of an introvert. A lot of librarians are. So it's, if I had to get out there and campaign, that would be a stretch for me. But anyway. Sure.
Any other questions from the board, library board?
I meant to ask previously as well, but any open meeting experience?
Well,
General
I've
public
taken all the
meetings.
training that was required by the town to not only to work there, but to work on the elections. You have to take the open meeting training and ethics and that sort of thing. So I passed all of those. I have my certificates.
Thank you. Thank you.
No question you have extensive experience in libraries. It's great, incredible career.
Clearly.
And I haven't really been to any library trustee meetings, but I've watched a few online.
Thank you. Thank you. I can see you have budget experience right here, so.
Yeah, I have a lot of budget experience.
And I don't know if you foresee any conflicts that you might have in your professional or personal life that would, come into play with if you were to be appointed.
No, that's why I stepped forward. There's no conflicts.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Rachel Nemeth.
Hi,
Hi.
Rachel Nemeth from 29 North Main Street. I have been in Middleton for about 30 years, and look at what I found amongst my papers. Does anyone recognize a really old Middleton library card? I was just so excited.
I
when
have
found
one.
it. Do you have one too?
I do. I do too. So do my kids. I have my
You
old
still
one.
have it too. We kept our cards. So you probably all have a copy of my resume already. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer it. The reason that I'm interested in being part of the library trustees is really I love my country, I love my state, and I love my town. I would love to be more involved in serving, and I have really a lot of experience with books, One thing that you won't find on the resume because it's older is all throughout high school and college, I worked at Christian book distributors all over the company too, working with books. So I was a phone representative taking orders and helping customers buy books according to their needs. Also, I worked in internet marketing, so I was constantly scanning the images of the books so you could look inside if you've ever used that feature. So covers, insides. I came across a lot of books. I even got to write copy as the advertisements of the books. So my whole life I've been interested in education. I love continuous learning, and I'm always learning, taking different courses currently, reading. I think my background is a good match for the responsibilities of the trustees, but that will be for you to decide. So that's really, I think, all I would have to say. Any questions are welcome.
I think the questions that,
I
a
have
couple
the-
that
Yeah, the
we've
standard-
asked. The
standard
standard
questions.
one, would you
Okay.
run if, you were appointed, would you run next May?
Yeah, so I've never been a trustee before, but if it was a good fit, if it was the best fit for the library and for the people of Middleton, I would absolutely consider running for it.
Great. Thank you.
Again, my question, have you attended or seen any of the?
No, I actually haven't.
My question is budgets. Have you, in your experience, handled any budget work?
Small ones. So as a site coordinator for the YMCA and aftercare program, we had a very tiny budget, and I'm quite proud of the work I did with that little budget to build the resources of the site. I can describe my strategy if you'd like to hear more, but that is my budget experience, and I was able to take little resources at the sites and expand them by being really careful and creative about how I use that little budget. So, not too much.
All right, I'll ask him, do you have foresee any conflicts in your professional or personal life that?
No, I don't
come
think
into
so.
play?
I don't see any.
It's just public.
Well, thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can jump in. Rick,
Rick,
Rick
one
wants
more
to-
question.
Oh, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
just the same question. Any public meeting experience, open meeting law experience?
Well, if you count as a member of the public attending meetings, town meetings,
I've
I
seen you
attended
at town meeting.
around the town. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next candidate is Costa Pentakis.
Pentakis Vera Road. Growing up in the poorest part of Lowell, the public library was my refuge and the window to the greater world. It played an instrumental role in the foundation of my education, which culminated in a law degree. I recently retired from a career in business, so my schedule is very flexible. Since 1996, I've served on a variety of elected and appointed boards and committees in town. I also spent 32 years on the board of directors of the Community Credit Union, the last 21 years as chair. We moved to Middleton in 1995, and at that time, the children's room was the basement of the old building. It's now the mechanical room. My kids loved going to the library, and it was because of the atmosphere that was created by librarians like Mrs. Matthews and Mrs. Turner, pages like Aniela Anderson and Loretta Johnson. I became involved in trying to upgrade the facilities of the library. I participated in part in the various plans that were tried to come to fruition. The one that did come and resulted in this beautiful building, I played a role in devising the financing plan for that building. Afterwards, I led the effort to acquire the Gianni property at the corner of Pleasant Street and tear down that building and open up the vista of the beautiful building that we had built. I was on the hiring committees for the interview committees for the last two directors of the library. I have also served on a couple of long-range planning committees at the library. So I would ask you to consider me to continue serving the library in the role of trustee, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Trustee. Any questions by anyone?
And cost to the same question of you, would you run?
I would definitely consider it.
Consider it, okay.
You know, things change, you know, and all of that, but, you know, right now, it's yes.
Thanks.
I know your open meeting experience.
I've done the town council's training a couple of times.
I think the obvious question, for me at least, is you're on a lot of boards, which we all appreciate. I certainly do. Have known you for years, and you've done a lot of good work for this town, no question. But I also think it's a little uncomfortable in one sense that to have your select board, that you're on the select board vote for you. So I'm wondering what their thoughts on that are. It's a little bit of an awkward position that they're in to vote on their fellow board member.
You can ask them.
Right. And then also, do you think that, I mean, you are here for the position, but I think in the past when there were no people to make a quorum, like I remember when Eileen asked me to be on the Housing Authority Board maybe 8+ years ago, she asked me because she didn't have a quorum. At this point, you can see we have several candidates. So I'm just wondering, why would you jump in seeing several candidates, and the other point, maybe I would turn to your board, I guess, and ask about what they feel about saying no to you, so to speak, and how that would come across.
In the past, I have been on many more committees at the same time than I am now. I'm on the Select Board and the Community Preservation Committee. Retirement gives me more time to give back, to the town. So, if this vacancy had been 7 years ago, I wouldn't, volunteer. Didn't have, certainly had the interest, but not the time. Now I do. So I thought I'd put my name forward.
Sort of answers it.
Any other questions?
Not completely. Maybe, and then my question to the board, I mean,
Yep.
if you could get, you guys want to get to that, I guess he's pointing towards us for more questions.
Why don't we let you guys finish
finish?
your
Yeah. I don't know
questions,
if you had
and
another
then
question?
we'll
Go ahead.
circle back to answer your question
Thank you.
from
Or
us.
attended any of the trustees?
I have not attended any of the meetings, but I have kept up, like I do with many of the committees in town, either look at their minutes or, the recordings of meetings.
I guess my question, I agree with the questions that my co-chair, my co-trustee asked. I'm wondering if, well, I obviously know you have budget experience. I'm not going to ask about your budget experience. But I was going to just ask if you, Mark, you would ask a question, or maybe the select board, about conflict of interest, and if you saw any conflicts regarding making decisions on a library budget, but having knowledge from the perspective of a select board member, and advocating for one when you already know that the money situation.
It is not a conflict of interest to be on 2 elected boards. In fact, a member of the trustees and a member of the select board are currently on 2 elected boards, so that doesn't represent a conflict.
No, but I'm referring more to how do you advocate for a library budget when you already know, wearing your select board hat, that the financial situation, like pre-knowledge kind of.
The budget process that we follow in town is, department heads that want to advocate for something additional go through the supplemental, process. So I can, advocate just fine, for if the library needs as it proposed this past budget cycle, for some additional positions. If I feel there weren't, I can certainly advocate for them. And then, the question on the other side is, what is the money available and where does it go in a list of priorities. To me, that's not a conflict.
So you feel comfortable advocating for some new positions and then as a select board member voting no on it? Which is what's happened in the past?
Well, it's happened and yes, I would be, because, I'm wearing, different hats. They are related, but the responsibilities are different.
You don't see that as a conflict? Thank you.
All right, and I'll just, personally, in response to Maria's question, I've known many people in this town and made appointments for. I too am on multiple boards and have been on other boards in the past, whether they be appointed or elected. And I think it's given me a good, perspective on the various boards in town and, what their duties are, what the makeup is. Certainly from this position, that's helped me a lot. And any decision I've ever made when it came to a vote for an appointment was not what I thought, but what I know the town would expect, and that's to make the best decision to make sure that that board is being given out of the candidates listed, that that board gets what I feel is the kind of person that would, make an effective board for that, whatever it is, library board or, council on aging, whatever that might be, rail trail, whatever that is. So I would look at it in that terms, that's all.
I'll give you my take on it is, I think Costa's been on a lot of boards, and I think he does a phenomenal job, and has done a phenomenal job on every board he's been on, especially this one. With that being said, we probably at least 20 times a year, we make a statement, we have openings on boards and committees, please apply, please apply, please apply to the public. So now we have some applicants that have applied, and I see two of these applicants have never been on, as far as I know, as far as reading the resume, any board in town at all. And I think that that's awesome, because that's why there are boards that the public, there's a reason that the public is on a bunch of boards. So I'm very excited to see two people on this list that have never been on a board before, where we keep asking and asking people to step up, and it'll be hard. And again, Costa does a great job. It'll be hard for me to sit here after asking meeting after meeting after meeting, come apply, come apply, come apply, and then to vote for one of us or someone that's on a lot of boards. We have some appointments for other positions later in this meeting, and I noticed the applicants are people that are already on other things. And I think this town needs some new people to step up, some fresh blood on some of these boards. And we currently have an alternate opening on the ZBA and an alternate opening in the planning board, and I would hope that anyone that doesn't get this appointment, that hasn't served on a board in town, would immediately put their name in for one of those boards, because it's just, to me, it's great to see new blood and new people, and that's just how I feel.
So for me, I also serve on multiple boards. With that being said, when it comes down to the town's budget, our decision with the select board hat here, what are the funds that we have and what department is in need to disperse these funds? There's no coercement. I kind of had the feeling as if you were looking like Costa would choose to either choose the right decision or not. And that's not true.
Sorry,
we always look out for what's in the best interest of the town. The library may need this, but Council on Aging may need this a little bit more. So our pie is only that big, and it has to be dispersed to run and operate this town for the entire year. I'm on the Board of Assessors. We generate over 72% of the revenue that operates this town. So I'm well versed in what we need to operate the town. At the end of the day, you can sit on multiple boards, because a lot of times we could be saying, because I'm on the Board of Assessors and that's the biggest financial piece that runs the town, maybe I shouldn't be making decisions in February. But that's not true. Because I can take that hat and I know what and how much we have. And it's what department is in need of the most. And everybody needs something, but our pie is only gonna go here. So that's,
But
I
what if
don't
you're-
see a conflict, is where I'm going.
It's
with-
interesting.
Not at all.
Thank you, I appreciate you answering that question that I posed.
So I definitely want to weigh in on this as well, if I could.
Go right ahead.
He was even there.
Yeah, so, the beauty about the appointment that's being made this evening, the joint appointment, is this is to a board that has an elected membership. So while the select board and the remaining trustees will be making an appointment this evening, next May, the voters also will be making a decision and appointment. To the point of whether this is a conflict, couldn't be any further than the truth. I would never support a position as a select board member stating that I would recommend against somebody being a candidate just because of another volunteer position that they have in town. I would never block somebody's access to be considered. I surely would never block anybody's access for being on the ballot. Guys, this is America. Secondly, I got to meet Costa due to the library. If there is a guy or a man or a woman in town that is more committed to the library, find me that person. Very, very hard to find. For me, couldn't be any further from the truth that this is a conflict. Just the opposite. Thank you.
I think it was, Brian, I think it was for clarification.
If I may, I never said it was a conflict.
Right.
And I don't believe
Well, I didn't say you said it was a conflict, Jeff, but it was surely inferred of whether or not we thought we should be making a decision as a board with somebody else that sits on the board.
It was only to the point that we keep asking people to apply, and we have some new people that are applying, and I think they should get a chance. Costa is more than welcome to run next May for the library board, but my only reason was because we asked people to apply, people applied, and I just don't think that we should turn them away. That's all. I don't believe it would be a conflict if he was on the board. I just think people took the time to apply, we asked them to apply, and we should give one of them a chance.
Does anybody in this room think there was going to be a shortage of candidates for this position?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
I have my
Okay.
opinion.
All right.
One of the
All right,
trustees.
so we'll,
Absolutely.
with any more questions up here, I'll thank Mr. Pentakis, and I'll next call
I
up.
think Mark had one.
No,
Oh.
I just said I knew
Okay,
experience.
go ahead.
No, just-
Mr. Kyle Smith, if you would, please.
It's like we're trying to wave him down.
Kyle Smith, 71 Mill Street. You all hopefully heard me campaign in May. You've got my cover letter, you've got my resume, so I won't rehash those details in the interest of time. My passion and interest in the library caused me to run in May for the open position there, and I'm still interested. I think the library is an amazing resource in town, and I want to make sure it has the resources that it needs to continue to be successful and to grow for another 100+ years. My professional career has been focused on working in technology and managing teams of engineers in technology. So to some of the questions I've heard, most of the budget experience I have is very small. A lot of that is handled by other parts of the companies that I've worked for. It's mostly been personal budgeting and for a couple of small local organizations that I act as the treasurer for the Town Democratic Committee and some other things, some other technology organizations. I've been a member of the town building committee for the past 3 years, and so I have experience with the meeting law and various requirements there. What else was there? I've sat in on a number of the library trustee meetings over the past year or so and watched some from years before that. Other questions that you all had that you'd like me to answer?
Would you, if appointed, would you plan on running in May for the position?
I have the signs, so that's an easy one.
Good point. That's a good point.
Anyone, go right ahead. Don't wait for us. Any questions, go right ahead, fire them off.
Resume was very clear and concise.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, and you answered my question, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In fairness, Kyle, do you foresee any conflicts you may have in your professional, personal life? Thank you very much. Okay, that would be, at this point, I'd like to ask for a nomination, and nominate all five.
I'll nominate all five.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and nominate all candidates have been nominated. Do we need a vote on that, or no? Not a roll call vote yet. All right, then for that, I am going to start by asking each member to cast their vote for the one individual for the appointment to the Library Board of Trustees. That would be effective until this spring's election. So I'll go from my left to right. I'll go Brian first, please.
Costa Printakis.
And we'll start with the Library Board.
It is a roll call.
Oh, is it a roll call?
For this portion, yeah.
Oh, I'm very sorry. All right. My mistake.
You got Brian, though, so just announce Susan, and you're good.
Okay. Yeah, make it a roll call vote, just announce.
What, for the nomination?
Yeah, no, for their vote.
What do you?
So Susan would have to.
Susan.
Yeah,
say
so
her
just
name.
announce your name.
Say
and
your
state
name, your
vote.
full name, and then your vote.
Yeah.
Say your full name.
Your name and who you want to vote for.
Okay, okay, who I want to vote, okay.
Your full name first.
Okay, Susan Picoli. I would vote for Kyle Smith.
Allison Sloan, and I would vote for Tamara Gatos.
Maria Pecos Hansis, and I vote for Rachel Nemeth.
Mark Moreski, I'd like to say thank you to everybody that's applied here as well, and please keep the library in your heart at election time. So we're going to need more people and more interest too. But due to his extreme experience with the town, I would have to vote for Costa Printakis.
Debbie Carboni, and I want to thank you all for your interest, and please remain interested. There's always, as Jeff has said, there's always openings. So please check back on the website at all times. I would vote for Costa due to his experience.
I wish I had a crystal ball to know which of Michelle and Rachel, both have never served on a board before, and I wish I knew which one would possibly put their name in for Board of Appeals or Zoning Board, and I would probably vote for the other. Because they both have great resumes and great qualifications. It's very tough, because I do want to see someone new on this board. I'm going to vote for Rachel, hoping that, Michelle, you put your name in for ZBA or Planning Board.
All right. And for myself, I see for my vote, it comes down to two individuals, and out of that, I'll have to select the person I know brings the most experience to make an effective board, a good working board, and my vote would go for Costa Printakis.
That's it, right?
So,
We got to do Brian.
He did.
Brian
He voted
did
first.
first. Yeah, Brian was first.
so I have two, so I have one for, so Tamara Gatos, 1 for Kyle Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 for Rachel Nemeth,
Yes.
and that's 4 for Costa Pentakis. So
Yes.
we'll make that.
Congratulations, Costa.
So, again, I want to thank everybody, and don't be shy for the other boards, you know, it's, I know how I felt when I first started it, and it was, you know, it seems a bit daunting, no matter where area of life or profession you come from, it's different, and, but being in this town, once you get your feet wet, everything turns out just fine, so I want to thank you all for, you know, being interested and contributing, and hopefully we'll see you in here again for another appointment.
I hope so.
So,
That's our next meeting. That will be
yeah,
done in August.
it was discussed at the last time we appointed someone that, excuse me, Mark,
too
for
late.
mentioning this from last time, that we need a treasurer. We don't have a treasurer on our board. At this point, it's a vacant position. And we had asked previous candidate who was appointed for a short term if he would agree to fill it. We desperately need a treasurer. Would you consider that, Costa?
I'd look into what it entails, but I'm definitely.
Yes, thank you. We really need you.
Okay.
We can take up
Can I
at the
ask-
next meeting.
Yes.
Board, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
And, yeah, look, additional thanks to you guys for being, you know, for being on it. Okay? For
Thank
everything
you.
you do.
Can I meet the
All right.
trustees at the entry so I can get your signatures on the certificate of appointment?
Sure.
As you file it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you too.
Take care, Mark.
Thanks, Jeff. All right. Bye, Brian.
Thanks, take care.
All right. All right, next on the agenda, if we, I'll wait for a moment for Costa.
And you're in person. Did you know they were coming in person?
Oh, no, I didn't, I'm glad, that's good.
I
That's,
didn't ask you.
yeah, we're ready for.
All right. So, next on the agenda is, we'll make a vote for new appointments, and we have it on this attached list. I'm not quite sure how we want to enter this. Town administrator, do you have a, just guess we can just name them.
Yep, so if you want to go ahead, name the individuals and the terms. I know some of them are here this evening, some are not, so I'd say maybe if you, as you go through the list, just pause to see if they're here, and if the board has any questions for them.
All right, so, we need to make these reappointments and potential new appointments. The first group is for 3-year terms. We'll do it in that fashion. 3-year terms is 1 seat for Bylaw Review Committee, and that has been applied for by our own Bill Renault. Don't see William here. The second 3-year term is Historical Commission, 1 seat, Bob LeBlanc. You want to? Go ahead, you're here, you give us a.
I'm honored to be selected for that board. I've never been on any boards before, but Ann talked me into joining, so I've been a member of the Historical Society for 6 years, lived in Middleton all my life, so I'm excited. I'd like to see what it's all about.
Thanks for applying.
Welcome, Bob.
This is what it's all about, new people, stepping up. This is great.
Not new, but new to the...
New to boards, not new to Middleton, new to boards.
Newer.
This is what this is really what this town needs, is some people such as yourself to step up and join these boards. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
And the third for the 3-year term, and I'm happy to see this, it's for the Rails to Trails Committee, and that's Annette Wilton. So thank you all, and thank you, Robert, and if I can get a motion to reappoint those 3-year
So these are
terms.
new appointments, all three, correct?
Those are new appointments.
So I'll move to appoint Bill Renault to the Bylaw Review, Bob LeBlanc to the Historical Commission, and Ann Wilton to the Rails to Trail Committee.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, and a roll call vote, please, Deb.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Myself is a yes also.
All right, passed unanimously. Again, thanks for your people, for your time volunteering. The next one is for a 2-year term. It's for the Affordable Housing Trust. The CPC representative is 1 seat, and it's Herman Lamont Cricky. And if he would want to grace us with a little statement or two, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this consideration. When the Affordable Housing Trust was first being introduced, I was very strong in favor for it. I spoke at the town meeting, and I said it was something that our town desperately needed, simply because our children cannot afford to live in Middleton. It's not a Middleton issue, it's all over the world. I think we should be taking steps to make affordable housing for people of low income, nurses, people who are just starting off the career ladder, who have a lot of student debt and need a safe place to live in. One of the things that I've seen around the town is people are saying, well, when these low affordable housing people come in, crime is going to increase. I find that to be incredibly rude, and I think that that's the wrong approach. So the Affordable Housing Trust should be looking at giving our children a chance to have a piece of the American dream, which we have seemed to have forgotten. Right? So if they can have a starter home where they can bring their children up in our community and go to our lovely schools. I've had 4 children go through the school system in Middleton. I think it's one of the best. I've lived in 3 different countries. It's actually the best that I've seen. And I would be very grateful to serve on the Affordable Housing Trust to be able to give our young people a chance. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Great to see you. Great to see you taking it on. All right, so I'll accept a motion.
So I'll move to appoint Herman Lamont Cricky to a 2-year term on the Affordable Housing Trust as the CPC representative.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and if Deb, once again, if you would, please.
Brian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Myself is a yes also.
All right, that's unanimous.
Welcome, Herman.
Thank you.
Okay, and let's see here, I'm gonna read this real quick.
These are available.
The openings.
Just a reminder, you'll have, you gentlemen that are present to get sworn in down at your earliest convenience, going to see the town clerk. Get sworn in. Meet a formality, but it makes it official. Okay. All right, now we have, just to mention then, we have available seats. As Jeff mentioned earlier, we have 1 seat as an alternate for a 1-year term for the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have 2 seats that are 3-year terms for the Cultural Council. And we have 2 seats as alternate for a 1-year term for the Industrial and Commercial Design Review Board. We have 1 seat as an alternate, a 1-year term for the Planning Board, and 1 seat, a 3-year term for the Recreation Commission. So if you were interested in any of those at all, please look on the town website for further information and
Apply.
let it be known. Thank you. All right. So now we'll move on to a final presentation and report from Studio Luz on the Memorial Hall feasibility. I do see them in the audience. Thank you. Yep, come right up. Exactly.
She's switching.
Perfect. Is Brian still on?
He just
Brian's
dropped
still
off.
going to be on. We're just dropping
Oh.
his photo or his
I
live.
think he just dropped off.
Yeah, he had to go to the
did?
airport. He said,
He's not on now. It's just Sarah. Not just Sarah, but it is Sarah and
So,
only Sarah.
Floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Pumphrey. I'm from Studio Luz. I'm joined by Elise Elias, and we are here.
can you speak a little
Yes.
louder?
We are here to present the findings for our Middleton Memorial Hall study. For the past several months, we've been working to study 48 South Main Street and 48R to figure out what could happen in a new life for Memorial Hall. once the municipal activities move down the street. So like I said, my name is Sarah Pumphrey. I'm the project manager from Studio Luz on this project, and I'm joined by Elise, who is the designer on this project. We're also joined by Claire O'Neill in the front here, who's from Mass Development. We've been partnering with Mass Development as well as the town of Middleton on this project, and the goal of this project is to develop a consensus of future use cases for 48 and 48R South Main Street, and to produce a comprehensive documentation of programming scenarios to inform a subsequent RFP for the redevelopment of property for a new proposed use of Memorial Hall. And so this is our agenda. We're going to go through a little bit more quickly for the beginning, for the introduction and existing conditions. Some of you may be familiar with this project, while others may be not, so we'll give a rundown of that. And then we'll go through our community engagement summary. We went through a community engagement process to inform this work. Then we'll go into our programming and planning. So we'll kind of show you the fruits of that program, of that community engagement work, alongside some of our research, and then we'll present some site schemes and recommendations for the property, as well as next steps for the town as they move forward with this project. All right, so as you know, this is Middleton, and Memorial Hall sits in the center there. Just to get us oriented, you can go to the next one.
Just let me know when you want to move it lags.
Perfect. So the purpose of today's presentation is to present the high-level process of this work, including our community engagement work, programming and planning study, subsequent site schemes, and next steps for the town and the parcels moving forward. And here you can see Memorial Hall in its kind of original form as the center school in the 1800s, and that's currently the parking lot now. So this is kind of the history of Memorial Hall. It's got a long history, and we want to make sure that it has a good future as well. And so here, the image on your left is the two parcels. So the smaller parcel is the 48 South Main Street parcel where Memorial Hall sits, and then 48R is there to the right. And this kind of just goes high level through our process, going from our site research to our community engagement, and like I said previously, onto our programming and site recommendations, and some schemes to move forward. Right, yeah, you can go ahead to the next. So now actually, sorry, back to the one before that. There we go. So we came to Memorial Hall and kind of assessed the conditions that are there now. So if you look on the right side of the screen there is Memorial Hall, which has mainly municipal offices, and then the field in the back, which has a and a gazebo and lots of open space that's used by the community. And then next. We did run into some site constraints through our research, which has informed kind of our recommendations moving forward. Things that maybe you wouldn't recognize on first glance on this site, but that will be really important as the site develops. And one of those is the grade change at the back of the site is quite steep, and it leads to Middleton Brook, which is a small brook or stream in the back of the site, which is a protected wetland. So you can see on this image, it might be a little bit tough to see on this image, but there is a 200-foot setback, and so much of that, thank you, Jackie, much of that large 48R site is to be protected and not developed upon. Perfect. And on the site, we went and drafted these plans as part of our study, as part of cataloging what's at Memorial Hall today. And so this is the first floor, as you can see, kind of more public-facing municipal offices, as well as an accessible entry and bathroom, and that bottom right kind of rectangle is a newer addition to the building, still about 100 years old, however. And then the next one is the second floor, which is where the town administrator's offices are, as well as a large gallery space that's predominantly used for storage at the moment. And it should be noted that the second floor is currently not accessible, ADA accessible, due to there only being stair egress. And so these things just inform our work as we go forward. We then went into site analysis, where we looked at zoning that's currently in place to see whether future developments would need to get variances, things like this, as well as the existing program use around the site. So looking at South Main Street and the surrounding streets to see what's really going on there now, and then looking at future developments that are happening in town. You've probably noticed there's a lot of development happening in Middleton right now, so paying attention to that and making sure that any recommendation that we give for Memorial Hall kind of fits within that fabric in a nice way. Next. So then we had our community engagement. So 114 Middleton residents showed up over 3 different modes of community engagement. The first was our online survey, which we had 82 respondents, I believe, on there. And then we had both an in-person and a Zoom community engagement session, which some of you may have been at, recognize some faces. And if you go to the next one. We asked a series of questions to inform our programming. And so the first thing we asked was blanket, what is Middleton missing? And a lot of people said recreation, and then community programming as well, and affordable housing. And so we then zoomed in on the next question. What do you want to see here on this site where Memorial Hall is? And again, recreation was overwhelmingly the biggest response, and that playground got a lot of love as well as kind of community programming where folks from the community could come and do different things together in a public space. You can go next. We heard that folks did not want any dense housing on this site, as well as things like bars and clubs. Everyone agreed pretty well on these. Go to the next one. So then we presented a few different site approaches that we were thinking of for this site. And so the top response from folks was that they wanted to see minimal reuse of this site and of Memorial Hall itself. That was 57% of people. And then the second response was for a creative adaptation, which is kind of a little bit more, I don't want to say invasive, but keeping that character of Memorial Hall, but building it out in a new way that would fit new programming a little bit better. And that was 16% of folks. And so if you go to the next one, although minimal reuse was the first response from folks, we do know that it could be cost prohibitive in terms of the state that the building is in currently and what kind of upgrades would need to happen for any sort of public-facing programming to happen in the building. And so we do want to kind of flag that for folks and say that rebuilding it as kind of a replica is also a choice, an alternate choice for that. And then creative adaptation was something that both the community and the select board were interested in, and is something that we found could give the opportunity for an I-62 cut through of the site, which several folks in the community did mention that they were interested in. And so we took that and kind of explored it a little bit in our site strategies and took that into account. All right. So for programming, so for the programming section, we took what the community said, we took what the select board has said to us in different meetings, as well as the town itself, and our site research to make some programming recommendations for Memorial Hall. And so we kept recreation at the top. Again, that was #1 response from the community and supported by the select board, and that playground as well. The biggest change on here is that we know that the new municipal complex is going to have a wonderful big community center, and so we wanted to kind of hone in on that kind of community ideal and account for neighborhood programming that was specific to the residents of the affordable housing that we're considering on this site. And so that's something to keep in mind as well as we move forward. And so these are just a few examples of things that could happen on this site. And these are things that we were considering when we were doing programming schemes. Recreation could mean a soccer field, the existing soccer field, or it could mean a multi-sport field that can be used for passive recreation and different sports, playgrounds. There we have some examples under the affordable housing or the low density housing of developments that are local. We have one, the Village complex in Middleton. We've got one in Cambridge there. And just showing that these things can kind of keep within the character of the town and serve that low density housing need as well. And then for that neighborhood programming that I mentioned, we were considering programming that either served the recreational programming or the housing programming. So we were considering concessions for the fields or resident gym space for that housing complex. And then for the residents, we were considering things like communal kitchens or communal living rooms, as well as and apartment co-working spaces. So things that residents of new housing could use to enjoy in their vicinity. Let's see. And so we then took these programs, and we just wanted to show you kind of illustrations of what these things could be. And so here we have the existing soccer field, as well as the trails that are all around the site, and you can kind of imagine them staying in place or there being more of these things. The soccer field is kind of constrained to that one spot. It fits perfectly there. You can go to the next one. And then the current playground, just to give you an idea of size, there's room for that to grow or move as needed, but it's something that we would recommend to keep on the site. And then this one I'm going to sit on for a little bit longer and make sure I say the things that I wanted to say. So this is for that neighborhood programming, and these small diagrams are Memorial Hall. So we're showing that you could keep that facade of that look and feel of Memorial Hall and fill it in different ways than it's being filled now. So that first one on the top left would be a Memorial Hall that was updated with accessibility upgrades so that both floors could be used by the public, and you've got the entire Memorial Hall with neighborhood programming. The one under it, the yellow, would be up to 3 units of affordable housing on top with neighborhood programming on the first level, so on that street level, for folks to be able to use with accessibility upgrades as well. And then the one on the screen on the right is showing keeping that facade, but kind of combining it with a new type of building structure that would be affordable housing as well, so that these things can kind of play into that in a more direct way. And then the other neighborhood programming that is sure to stay at at the site is the Traeger gazebo. And then here, we took some standard sizes of units that we know are nice to live in because of their size, and we took that and we arranged it in different ways so that there could be some recommendations of different typologies of housing for this site. The top one would be a multi-use building with neighborhood use on the bottom, and then more like an apartment style building with more slightly smaller units. The one under that would be kind of more of a condo only housing building, showing 3 bedrooms only. I believe that one's 3 stories. And then the last one being a kind of townhouse typology that would fit within the fabric of the neighborhood that it's currently in, which could be kind of multiplied at the rate that folks would want to see. And those are 3 stories, 3 bedrooms as well. And so we took this work of the site research and the community engagement and then the programming to lay it out on site to show the town of Middleton and the community what these things could look like. And so this first one here we have this, I'll kind of...
I have the cursor if you want to just talk it. I've got the mouse.
Oh, yeah. So we've got Memorial Hall, which is rebuilt and moved up slightly on the site in this scheme, with a small apartment building that's connected to it in the back. I'm just going to read the numbers for these guys, but and this is that creative adaptation kind of site strategy that we talked about earlier. So preserving what Memorial Hall looks and feels like from the front, but really expanding it into a new life in the back. And this scheme does preserve 48R as it is now. So you've got the field and you've got the playground, which actually is moved up a little bit, as well as the trails and the gazebo, and then a few more parking spaces than are there currently. Go to the next one. Yeah, I didn't know if it was a lag or not. And then this one, which is similar, but you've got detached condos in the back, and so folks could have kind of their own front door and have neighborhood programming inside of Memorial Hall, and really use that as kind of a neighborhood hub for those condos in the back, and then sharing parking with the field and the recreational space on this one. This one is also a creative adaptation, and I believe we've got 8 units on this one, 3 bedroom, 3-story townhouses. Next one. And then this one is kind of our most minimal reuse scheme. It's got Memorial Hall on the same footprint that it is now, with the two-way traffic circle. It reworks the parking lot a little bit and kind of flips it on its side so that there's room for an affordable housing development in the back that would be more of that apartment typology like we saw earlier, with space in Memorial Hall that could serve the field. So you could have concessions for folks at their kids' games, things like this. These are things that are kind of frameworks for the town of Middleton and any stakeholders to kind of frame in that RFP. So these are things that can be a continual conversation and figure out what that best programming would be. And then you've got, like I said, the playground as well as the field still in the back there. And this one has the most units, like 16 to 18 units in the back. And then And then this is our last scheme. This one is creative adaptation, and this one, if you see, or Jackie, if you point to the road on the cut through, this would potentially allow for a cut through of Route 62 through the site at some point, but it also allows for a kind of efficient development of the site as it is now. So it's got Memorial Hall in the front, moved up a bit and used as neighborhood programming, again, perhaps for the fields with its own parking and extended parking for the fields more than there is now. It's got 70 spaces, I believe. And then on the screen right side of the parcel, there's some of these low-density townhouses, 6 of them, which we think could tie well into the neighborhood that's existing there, not bringing any folks onto that driveway street that are going to the fields and things like that, but providing a nice low-density neighborhood space for those folks in their new homes. And then you've got your playground and your field and your trails and gazebo. And so this is kind of our biggest biggest change on the site, but I think it works really well. And so we took these programming scenarios and we moved into our next steps. And so these next steps are really for the town to kind of consider and follow as they move towards an RFP for the site, as they seek development of the site. And so we recommended, based on the research that we've done and the community engagement, 2 different paths. And they both, in that blue, they both include feasibility studies and upgrades. And I'm going to go into that more in the next slide, but essentially that means that this study provides a set of recommendations, but there's still more work to be done to figure out what really is feasible on this site financially, but also in terms of a lot of the systems that might be outdated on this site. And so Path A would start with an RFP. So the town would kind of start composing this request for proposals and then land on a developer and work with the developer to kind of negotiate and figure out what kind of feasibility studies need to be done and get those done before going into the development of the project. And then B would kind of flip that over, and the town would conduct these feasibility studies and upgrades kind of as an incentive for developers on that RFP to say, this is the work that we've done, and this is what we can do together. And so, and then that has us, I think, what did we say? May 2026 would be the time when a new life would begin to happen in Memorial Hall. That's, no, we've got, yeah. So this is just kind of going into some of the things that we think would need to be studied further. And these are all gone into, there's more detail about these in the study itself, in the report itself. But septic is something that would need to be looked at for sure. It's original to the building, and it would be something that would need to be upgraded for any sort of higher density programming to happen on the site. Let's see. Structural integrity and renovations of the building itself, of Memorial Hall, system upgrades and accessibility upgrades and different code implications, as well as civil engineering or highway feasibility, if that's something that the town is interested in pursuing. Seeing the actual feasibility of a road going through the site would be something that would need to be studied. And then we can go to the next And then these are some other important considerations that we think are really important to look at as someone moves forward with the development. The current zoning in Middleton, wetland and riverfront protection measures, as we spoke about before, and different consultant services to assess, like we said before, sewer capacity, civil and traffic study, geotechnical support, code reports, and building assessment report. And so these are the kind of the things that are outside of our study, but our recommendations as next steps. And that is it. Do you have anything you want to add? Great. I think Claire's gonna speak a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Good evening, board members. My name is Claire O'Neill. I'm Senior Vice President of Real Estate Planning at Mass Development. My role here this evening is really to thank you and thank the town staff and our partners at Studio Luz for all of your work leading up to this presentation this evening and the report that you will receive. I want to congratulate you on taking sort of proactive steps when it comes to the reuse of buildings that are going to become vacant in town. The last thing a building needs is to be vacant. When buildings have no people and no purpose, they decay rapidly. And I'm sure, as you can see from the work that you've been presented this evening, that there are various options that the town can move forward with to preserve elements of that site that are important to the community and also make sure that it's an active and useful parcel for the town moving forward. So if Mass Development can continue to help you, we are all ears. This was a competitive grant that you accessed, and we've had a great pleasure in working with you all. So thank you very much.
And can you provide the funds to do all the next studies?
You know that upgrade word?
The cost of reusing historical buildings is astronomical.
Correct.
Absolutely astronomical. And it's a fine line between reuse and, I'm afraid in a lot of work that I've done, which involves reuse of state school, state hospital sites, we have to remove a lot of the structures. We really do. So I think, again, the options that Studio Luz has articulated give you some real food for thought about how to retain some of the character and the history of the community while also making sure that this is a site for the future, not just a museum piece. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any comments that you said you might have? Right ahead? Yeah, sure.
Diane, can you speak up? We can't hear
Yes,
you.
I'm coming over there. I know they put a lot of work in, and I'm not trying to be your nemesis. Diane Anderson, 7 Boston Street. I went to the community meeting at the library, and I just have to make an observation that when we got the postcard about meeting at the library about Memorial Hall, I thought we were going to discuss Memorial Hall and what we saw as a vision for Memorial Hall. I think what put me a little off was when we were asked to imagine or think about what Middleton needed, which I felt like that was different than what I thought I was going to. I thought I was discussing Memorial Hall. Now I think you might remember how much historically this building means to me, and I would imagine to some other people in the town.
Many.
And so I understand there are many needs in a community, but I also feel that a very important need is to leave something for our children that we can say, look at that building. That building was the center school. I spoke with someone who I believe it was her grandmother or mother who went to school there. So I came across a quote a long time ago, which I'm going to start here so I don't ramble. I think I shared it with a couple of you already. But I just want you to think about the historical aspect of the things that we may be losing in town. And so history is to a nation what memory is to a person. So although we want to reimagine Memorial Hall, we also want to have it there so we can point to it and say, this was historically valued. And you as children and grandchildren are valued. So we can keep this history within our town. We have very few historical things in town. The two, believe it or not, that come to mind for me are the library and how the town stepped up and paid the extra taxes to have it renovated and make it the beautiful library that we have now. And believe it or not, the other historical place is Oakdale Cemetery, which was started because of the Civil War when soldiers were coming back, and that's where they would be interred. So those are the two main historical places that we have. And then I'm thinking the other places are the homes that people have maintained or have their little plaque on that says this was such and such a house. You may not know, my home actually was originally the First Universalist Church in Middleton. So you may not know that. So there's history in this town, and I guess what I'm trying to do is you just don't want to get rid of it. And so this Memorial Hall and the Senior Center are two historical buildings. I know they're going to be expensive to renovate and imagine what can go in there, but I think that we owe our next generations the opportunity to experience those places. So let me just do this. I was watching, I believe it was a meeting, and I know the funding is a big part of this. And I can't remember if it was the planning board or the building committee or whatever it was. And what stunned me, and I cannot remember what that figure was, but I thought it was stunning, for the new gazebo at the municipal building. The amount of money that would be put into a gazebo versus trying to save one of our last or surviving historical buildings. So that's where I'm coming from. I grew up in this town. I happily rejoice that I just celebrated my 70th birthday, and I have spent every time of my life here. And maybe that's where it comes from, that when you remember a town that you have lived in and watched and seen it change, you want to sometimes just hang on to those little experiences that you have had with those buildings that potentially are going to be gone forever. So I guess my big thing is that, and I did go through the Community Preservation Act, and that I know that some of the money every year can be used for historical places, so there's funds there potentially. And part of it is to preserve and enhance the properties of historical, archaeological, and architectural and cultural significance. And I feel, although architecturally it still looks the same, and I know it will be a lot of money, I really think before we jump in that we really need to think, and I know you've been thinking about it, I'm not saying you haven't been thinking about it, I know you have. And I appreciate all the work that you have been doing. But I'm just pleading for Memorial Hall, and then after that I'll plea for the old senior center, which used to be, if my mind's eye's right, the Grange. It used to be the Grange building. So that's where I come from. No disrespect to all the work and courage that you have had to come here and look at this. So, and I get to sit right next door to the new 60 apartment, which it's all good. It's going to be all good. But, and so we have some housing there. And I know there's a need for housing. But I think for me, if I were, as I said in another meeting, if I were ruler of the world It would be about the historical value of what we want to maintain for our town. So I appreciate all of you being here, and I appreciate you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
I think you have someone else that wants to say.
Rachel.
May I speak?
Sure.
Sure.
Apologies for my lack of preparation. I saw this on the agenda and I just stayed for it. I had a couple things I wanted to share. First, thank you for everything you said. I 100% agree. I've lived here for 30 years. My home was probably built in the 1800s, so the idea that it is too costly to maintain old structures is absolutely incorrect. I think that might depend on what you want to do with it. I don't mind that the horsehair plaster in my home is a little bit crumbly and makes a little bit more dust. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love the big beams of old wood. I love the touch of it. I love the smell of it when it's rainy and humid and the house emanates these amazing aromas. I would definitely say it's worth preserving our historical buildings that are made of real things. They're not fabricated plastics, and whatever buildings are made out of now, they're actually old solid woods. I just walked in Memorial Hall maybe about a week ago or two. I climbed those old stairs, I saw the shiny wood, and I was so thankful for it. And now to hear that people want to tear it down, not you all, but that's being considered is very disturbing to me. I noticed a huge old tree that grows right next to the cemetery, and one thing that is starkly missing from everything I've heard is anything about preserving our green trees. I know that there's talk of keeping our wetlands because they're protected, but every tree matters, especially the old ones. I know that if a tree is young, you can easily cut that down and replace it with a new one. But trees, they hold our land together. Their root systems are what make our land stable, and it seems to me as I look at all this development that no one takes into account how important the trees are for our very lives. They're important for our weather, for helping hold rain in the droughts that we have every summer. They're important for keeping our substrate stable so that we don't have erosion. They're connected with each other, and
Nope.
the idea of bulldozing.
I agree, but
Our
you're
trees.
drifting a little. This is about the building, but we can concur with the tree aspect of it.
So I think when there's new construction especially, it's like trees are just treated like they don't matter at all. There's little effort in many sites to work around the trees and work around what grows there. I can't speak for everyone else, but when I ask for affordable housing and when I'm interested in that, what I want is for my house to be affordable. I don't think we need extra housing in the town. I think we can better use what we have. I'm not sure about adding. We are very strained for water. Earlier in this meeting, we talked about a level 5 drought. We're having to hand water. How are we going to support a massive number of apartments being put in our town? Empty spaces are all over our town. I walk through the center all the time. Vacant, vacant, vacant. Why is that if empty space is so awful?
I don't know.
I'm sorry if I sound a little bit aggressive.
If we could, I'd like to have a few other things on the agenda here.
I don't mean that to this group. I'm putting these things out there because they've kind of been building up. And the other thing I would like to know is an interesting phrase that I caught being used, which was Middleton residents and stakeholders. I am concerned about who are these stakeholders. We in Middleton, we are the stakeholders. So if anyone would like to answer a question for me, it's, and stakeholders? This is our town. Who are the stakeholders? We are. Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, certainly.
So, I agree with two things. I agree with a couple things that were said. I agree when Herman says we need some affordable housing, and I agree with Diane that building should stay. So now, to renovate, and I agree it's gonna cost a lot of money to renovate that building. So, we have the land on Locust Street that we're gonna put in proposals to sell to developers to put lots up there. Maybe we should pair them up. You wanna buy Locust Street land, you gotta buy the town hall. With this proposal to say put 4 to 6 housing units in it, which we can make affordable, and they come as they're a package. You have to buy them both, and as part of the deal, we write up what town hall is to be, if you want to, and maybe that wouldn't be a big money maker for them, but with the money they're gonna make from buying Locust Street, because we know there's gonna be a lot of demand for developers for that, maybe package them up as one package. And then I think because to try and get a developer to come in and take over town hall to turn it into some affordable units, it's just, financially it might not be feasible, but to find someone to buy both with the requirements, that might just work. So that might be a way to get that building turned into some affordable units, get some value for it, but more importantly, get what we want for it with someone qualified to do it. It's still reach our goal of selling Locust Street. It might be a win-win-win. I would like to explore that exact avenue.
And if I may speak to some elements of that, so, and there are a few pieces there, so to work backwards, the stakeholder component, I think the intent there is not just the citizens, individuals in general, but also various boards and committees, historic commissions, state agencies, agencies that may have grant funding that we could put towards that, as well as any private side developer who may be willing to contribute funds. So that's who I think would be lumped into that, but I understand at first glance, without explaining it, it sounds a little nefarious. So the other component is, I think when it comes to historic properties, especially municipally owned historic properties, and through the lens of my own experience working in several different municipalities, the obstacles that come with rehabbing those and trying to balance the way a community feels about the history of a specific site versus the resources they have to address those or create a path forward for them. And I think there are plenty of instances where communities end up holding a site like this and sitting on it for 10, 20, 30 years until it's an eyesore in the middle of your community, just kind of waiting until eventually time takes it anyway. What this team has been trying to do is trying to be proactive about this, trying to identify a future use, not in 5 or 10 years, not even when we move into the new building, but well before it, so that we can have a seamless transition before that building really goes downhill. And I think it was trying to take an honest and clear-eyed look at the available resources we have, the other priorities in the community, and maybe trying to find a way to, rather than a top-down approach, a citizen-driven approach, which is why we have these public input sessions, to see what the priorities were of the people of Middleton to help better inform ultimately a decision that this board has to make. And one last piece that kind of jumps out at me is the historic picture in the beginning of this photograph, and I think it's the important piece of historic properties that people lose sight of, myself included. I'm a huge history buff. But looking at that picture, you're looking at a field that for a long time has been a parking lot. And if you look at the top of that building, there's a cupola there that I don't think anybody in this room has any memory of one being there. And so these things have a tendency to evolve and change over time. That's part of the historic process. And I think the important angle that I don't want lost in the conversation is, by going through this process and what's outlined in the work that Sarah and Elise did in terms of the next steps element, going through an RFP process that helps this board take the input from the citizens and really shape who comes in here. So you're not just putting a price tag on it, pushing it out the door and crossing your fingers. You're really kind of controlling your own fate there and putting something forward that's meaningful to the community and kind of balances all of those factors we've listed. So just trying to, I guess I'm imploring folks to keep that in mind. I think this is a conversation that's going to be ongoing. This process was a first step, and I think it gave us a lot of important data and line of sight in terms of what the options are there. but we still have a long way to go in terms of a determination, so.
Yeah, in no way are decisions being made now on this. Appreciate the amount of detail that was in this presentation tonight. It's an awful lot to, in a good way, it's a lot to chew on and a lot to digest, so this is another step taken in how we're gonna handle the disposition of the old buildings. All good thoughts. All right, if you'll allow, I'm sorry, if you'll allow me, then I'd like to move on to a year-end transfers presentation. If she's still with us, our CFO, Sarah Wood.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Jackie, are you going to put it up, or would you like me to put them up on the screen?
I'm getting there. Give me 1 second. Can you share, Sarah? Did I give you enough permission?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
I have it now if you can't.
Sorry, I apologize. I'm not used to my home setup here, so bear with me, please.
Got it.
Okay, thanks for letting me. Thank you, everyone. This is for our fiscal year-end transfers, which according to National Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, allows transfers made during the last 2 months of the fiscal year, or during the first 15 days of the new fiscal year, to apply to the previous fiscal year. So these are for FY24 transfers for year-end closeout. The final total amount that I'm requesting to be transferred is $90,026.83. I will not go through all the accounts that I'm asking transfers to be made to and from, but I will go through kind of the reasons for why these transfers are needed. The majority of all the salaries and wages that you see in those various accounts there are for 3 specific reasons. The Administrative Assistance Union contract was funded at town meeting within the compensation reserve. This just moves the money out of the compensation reserve into those various account numbers so that as we do budgets going forward, things are very transparent and accurate within our system. Also accounts for any merit pay increases that were given to the positions that qualified for merit pay for FY24. That was also funded in the compensation reserve. So just simply moving out of that account and into the other department accounts. And freeze and errors here about budget calculation. So we didn't take the most recent contract amounts as a starting basis. This is, I will say, specific to the fire chief salary amount, where we had taken the previous ClearGov one, but that was for the previous fire chief. We didn't account for the contract as that was still in negotiations as we're settling the contract. Also within salaries and wages, for the assessors department specifically, that was over budget due to staffing of additional part-time help over the summer of 2023 due to staffing needs. Also a transfer into the town council line item due to additional costs outside of the retainer for court dates, arbitrage, things that are just not part of our normal contract with them, that were above and beyond what we expected during the fiscal year. Town reports were over budget due to the printing of warrants for the fall special town meeting. We did increase this line item for FY25, although we don't anticipate there being a fall special at this time. We are bumping that line item up in the future just for a fallback. DPW park expenses were over budget due to costs typically coming out of the Middleton revolving fund, which was closed in FY24. We did increase this line item again in 25, and the DPW director did have some additional costs just to maintain the fields due to how wet last summer was and how hot this summer has been so far. The overage for that is coming out of DPW salaries and wages, as that line item was budgeted higher than needed as there was a lot of turnover within the department. And finally, the garden club saw an increase in the cost for the holiday wreaths that I put up. So a small transfer is needed to cover that overage. If there's any questions, I'm happy to go into more detail if needed.
I don't have any questions, Rick. Pretty
I do
straightforward.
not. Nope. Well, no, I got one question. On the DPW for the park expenses, is that staff? Additional
No,
staff?
that's for the maintenance of the field. So it's the loom, it's some of it's mowing, some of it's more equipment. I can get more details out of our DPW director and follow with an email tomorrow if you'd like some more details of what the expenses were. I don't have them all off the top of my head. But I do know that there was a lot of work needed to keep the fields up to the standards that we like to see within the town.
Okay, no, that's fine, sir, thank you, I just didn't know. I know we had a couple new hires, I didn't know if that was that. Okay.
So if there could be a motion to transfer in the amount of $90,026.83 from the accounts listed to the accounts listed.
I'll make the motion to transfer as written per Finance Director Sarah Wood in the amount of $90,026.83 to the necessary accounts to switch into.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jeff.
It was a little convoluted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so,
No roll call needed since Brian
oh,
is.
that's
Yeah,
right.
Brian's not.
All right, and all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Appreciate your patience. All right. Next, we're gonna have a annual renewal for a Class 2 license for auto export.
I'll recuse myself from this one.
Sure, Jeff. I don't
Jackie, is this Class 2 renewal at a different point in time than the beginning of the calendar year?
Yes, so, and Mr. Serta
Yeah.
is here to see you tonight as well. So he's had a license with the town historically, but due to some personal reasons, he couldn't renew at the regular season. So we have had his renewal come in late because he would like to resume doing business in town. Would you like to add anything to the board? You don't have to share anything.
Beginning with the COVID, I got injured and I got a rotator cuff surgery, and that was the reason that I was not able to continue doing absolutely anything, and then I did not renew the license. And now I'm much better than before, and I'm looking to go forward and try forward.
So is this a renewal or a new license?
It's a renewal because he previously had a license with us, so we've accepted it as a renewal. With the Class 2 licenses, there's no fee for a different, there's no different fee for a new versus a renewal, so there's no fee difference. And because Mr. Serta had been on file with the town for a number of years, and there was no issues, complaints, or anything in his file, it seemed to make sense for all of us to just process it as a renewal because he's been with us before.
Okay. All right, we'll take up, this needs a vote.
So I'll move to renew the Class 2 license for auto export.
Second.
Second, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And Jeff recused. All right? There you go, sir.
Thank you.
All righty.
Have a good night.
Good health. Glad to have you back. Next on the agenda, we have an acceptance of a donation to the Middleton Food Pantry in the amount of $1,000 from Francis Leary. Much thanks, Frank, and I'll take a motion.
So I'll move to accept Frank's generous donation.
Second.
Okay, motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Very good. Passed unanimously. Next item is the selection of a select board designee for the town Masco Coordination Group TMCG. You can fill us in a little bit more on that.
Rick, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Costa. It was his
Okay.
idea for this committee. So I think it's appropriate that we appoint Costa to this position.
Sure, and just a quick point of order, I would refrain from an appointment, it's just a working group, but I think,
Okay.
so it doesn't need a formal vote, but if that's the will of the board, we can just go
Oh,
to Costa.
okay.
Yeah.
Easier.
So what discussions have happened so far?
Sure. So, for anybody watching at home that may have just tuned in, what this is in reference to is at a recent previous meeting talking about some elements of the local municipalities trying to improve our communication and coordination with the Masco School Committee, particularly pertaining to capital items, but other budgetary items as well, as I suppose. Excuse me. So, as proposed by the Select Board at that last meeting, trying to form some type of group that's comprised of a member of the Select Board, the Finance Committee, as well as the Town Administrator, from the three communities involved, Middleton, Topsfield, and Boxford. And so I had reached out and coordinated a meeting with my counterparts in Topsfield and Boxford since the last Select Board meeting to lay out this recommendation on behalf of this board. They have passed it on to their membership. It seemed agreeable as described, so we'll see if they're going to put folks forward. So I did communicate it to our Finance Committee as well, our two chairs. They're going to put forth somebody from the Finance Committee. And so that's kind of where we're at this point. So
I know, it was one member's suggestion that this configuration and, having, discussions among the three towns as to how Masco impacts them and how we can be of help to Masco is good, but I also think we need to at least offer a chance to Masco to participate in that discussion. And I would think that, if the other two towns, are interested and designate a select board person to do it, I would start off by having those three people and the chair of the Masco School Committee, or somebody he appoints. Those four people just have an informal discussion. How can we be of assistance? What can we do? And then we can talk about kind of a structure that, because the bigger the group gets, the harder it will be to find time in everybody's schedule, to work together. And, if there is no interest in the other two towns, then it doesn't really go anywhere. If there's no interest in Masco, but there is interest in the other two towns, then we just talk, among, the three towns. But it seems to me, that's how we can get some participation. And starting off with a small group, it's a lot easier to find time for four people to have a conversation on topics. And how can we structure something? If everybody thinks it's a good idea to have these discussions, how do we structure something that provide an ongoing, discussions? Well, I don't know what everybody, that's my idea of how to start this process, is having, that four-person conversation. So each entity is represented.
Who are those four? Sorry, for clarification.
Well, somebody from Masco.
Yeah.
Somebody from each town.
Okay.
In the school.
No, those four. Masco and the three towns. Four.
Okay. I thought it was school committee. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Masco School Committee, right?
The Masco School Committee,
Oh, I'm
one
sorry. I thought
person
you
from
meant-
there.
And three select board
Gotcha.
representatives.
Gotcha.
One from each
One
town.
from each.
So no Finance Committee?
And nobody,
To start off,
to start off,
what he's saying.
if
Oh, just to get kind of ground rules in place and then...
kind of, to gauge interest, and do it. And then if it looks promising that we want to have some more established structure, then we can, create that and add people. But to try to
get going with this bigger group of people, I think it's going to be harder because we won't ever be able to agree on a time to meet.
It's certainly a challenge, and I think what comes to mind is just before the annual town meeting in a last-ditch effort to try to resolve the discrepancies between the different parties involved in the roof and HVAC capital project. They had actually, I forget who, Topsfield or Boxford, but had reached out and requested the format I laid out in the memo, which was the chair at the time, Mr. Garber, myself, as well as John Erickson was there. I don't remember if Mr. Gregorio was there, but the same mirrored in each community, and it was a fairly productive conversation. But I do agree. I think maybe just to start with a small group, there's value in that, but it would be nice, I think, to have all of those different angles covered because everybody's kind of bringing a different perspective.
And it is, but that also gets you to who's interested and who's not in participating, and what does, what kinds of topics are going to be discussed, what kinds of meetings are held. So this is kind of like the planning session for that, and ultimately it may be that if it's 3 people from each town, that's 9, and people from Masco, that's going to get to 12, and that becomes harder to
Well,
coordinate.
particularly if it's a working group starting up, and that's a lot of, you only have a few disciplines here you're working from, so I don't think you need to go.
So the ultimate goal is to have better communication and understanding of what everybody's concerns are, so that whatever gets proposed, there's a better chance of being accepted by the voters at town meeting, at the ballot if necessary. But I think it's be better to start a little smaller than a little bigger, and you can grow. If that's the path that's going to get followed.
Sure. So what I'll do is, for a next step, I'll reach out to my counterparts in Topsfield and Boxford, and I'll just ask them, out of the group that we had already kind of workshopped, if they could just agree to tap one from each, and we can set up some time where those 2 can meet with you and a member from Masco, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Cool. And then we'll see what the appetite of each entity is for this coordination.
Great, makes sense.
So, thank you, Jeff, for suggesting me. And if the other board members are fine with it, I'm happy to do it.
Yep.
Well, good with that, Mike?
Yep, totally.
So the only question I had, and forgive me if you've already said it, because I have a hard time hearing over here. So are the other 2 communities interested in forming this joint working group so that we're all on the same page and not working at the 11th hour before a town meeting?
Yep.
Has the other 2 towns committed that they thought that was a good idea?
So the administrators from each town have, and I think even in terms of the conversation that the 3 of us had, it lasted 2 hours, and we've communicated pretty extensively about this topic and others surrounding Masco. And even over that 2-hour period, we found there were some elements that maybe they didn't have the full picture that we had, and I didn't have the full picture they had. So there's value in that capacity. They haven't put forward, I think other boards are on the same summer schedule we are, so they haven't put forward, or I think had an opportunity as a public body to discuss it. But at least this takes the next, like someone had to take the first step, I guess. And so
Right.
that's where we're kind of at now.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Costa. All right. And next, I have it highlighted here, but it would be the update on the tech study of Route 62 pass-through traffic at intersection of Route 114 Memorial Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was a late addition. We received the report kind of right at the buzzer. I'll try to be brief given the hour and my rapidly declining voice. So, as mentioned in the Studio Luz report, one element of the Memorial Hall study was whether or not 62 could pass through there off Boston Street, carry through onto Maple Street. Before diving into a full-blown study, which would have been $25,000 to $30,000, we did ask TEC to, as a starting point, at least try to analyze the existing traffic and see who actually makes that maneuver, coming through and cutting in one direction or another, cutting through 114. And they actually were able to determine, looking at peak traffic, that about 60% of Route 62 traffic is looking to cross 114 rather than continue north or south or east or west, however you look at it, onto 114. And TEC provided two solutions for that. One would be, in their own words, improving the zigzag, and you can see they had some substantial backup here, but the zigzag being that, making that move through the square. That would include studying ways to widen or otherwise improve the existing infrastructure, lane striping, other elements that might improve the flow to a degree that would at least be somewhat noticeable. The other one, solution two, which would be obviously way more expensive and time consuming, would be exploring the feasibility of a new road through the Memorial Hall parcel and what elements or components would be required to actually pull that off. So as a starting point anyway, I asked TEC to provide a proposal that you'll have at your next meeting on August 6th for to do each of those studies individually or together, just to give you a price point, give you an idea what it would look like. Either way, it would take them about 3 months to complete all the necessary analysis to compile those reports. So I figure no harm in seeing what it costs, and then you can kind of go from there.
And I'm not a proponent of having 62 continue through that parcel, but if it did, what happens when it dumps onto 60? So it's going to go through. Now you're going to come to Maple Street. You're going to have the people coming from coming down Maple. So the people coming from Danvers, what are they going to take a left turn to go on this new road to go?
Well, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that any new road carries either 114 or 62 traffic that wants to continue on 62. So it's a one way.
One way.
So that prevents the left-hand turn that you were talking about. But it still doesn't solve the issue of what that intersection looks like, where Washington Street is here, King Street is here, and this new road dumps kind of in the middle of it. So
think about the Cumberland Farm traffic that's coming out of that side onto 62 and/or trying to take the left onto 62. That is a cluster mess.
Yeah.
That needs a light all by itself.
So
I have seen almost collisions there almost daily. I travel that to and from work.
So that intersection is an issue. The grade of the land is an issue, and the conservation restriction status of the land is an issue, and then money is an issue.
I don't think I'll say it publicly. I don't think it's a good idea.
I need to know if it is or it isn't before I make a decision on 48 South Main.
If you remember, Debbie probably remembers, we had that road before. I don't know if you were here at that time. So you can see there's a guardrail there now. It's a little before Memorial Hall.
Old South.
On South Main Street.
Old South,
Yes.
yeah, used to
Mount Vernon,
used to be able to come down 114 and cut through and come out through that neighborhood, and that was blocked off because the people in the neighborhood didn't want all these cars, which is now we're doing the exact same. We may as well just open that gate up again, and we have it already.
The only difference is it doesn't go through that through King's. So
I think there's better ways to solve that traffic problem.
So I'm not advocating I'm just pointing out what it's the most likely to look like and what the issues are. And any one of them could kill it, and now there's 4
really difficult issues to
Right.
deal with.
Right.
So that kind of makes it less likely that it can happen, even if it is a good idea.
Speaking of that intersection, any update on that traffic light? Left arrow?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
It's pending.
But it's approved for the
Is-
public.
Yeah, I think the last update we got from them was sometime in late July. They were gonna
Okay.
be able
Yeah,
to,
that's
yeah. I'll keep following up though.
Okay.
No, but that's, you know, I mean, as we move forward here, all the information is weighted equally, in my opinion, before we, you know, put a window where a door should be when it comes to Memorial Hall. Put it that way, you know, I don't wanna turn around it, you know, you guys summed it up right, but we gotta flush it out. Thank you. All right, and now finally, updates and announcements? Anyone?
No.
Jack?
Tomorrow at 2:30, the sign dedication.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Is that 2:30
So
or
tomorrow at
2:30. 2:30.
tomorrow at 2:30, there'll be a presentation by the Middleton Police Benevolent Association. That's the collective bargaining unit for our Middleton Police. And they have created a sign that will be installed on Kucha Way. The sign is named after Ed Kucha some time ago, and the
July
the
10th.
date was selected that it was July 10th, that would be the day that it happened. So, you know, you're welcome to come out, but if you don't and you see it, that's what it is. It's for Sergeant Ed Kucha. God bless him. It'll be at 2:30 on River Street, Kucha Way being on River Street at Kucha Way. And
At the Boston Street end of, almost, of River Street.
almost halfway, right? Yeah.
We advise people to carpool if they can.
Yeah, you
I
gotta,
was
yeah,
just gonna ask what the parking looks like.
parking would be difficult.
And do your best.
Although, I would say that new roadway, Kucha Road, is probably, I wouldn't park on River Street, but I'd park on Kucha Way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it'll be hot and humid. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
would wear my sweatshirt from the Kuchar fundraising that happened, right after. It was a walk around Middleton Pond, starting and ending at the library.
Could style it like a golf sweater costume
Maybe.
so we can still see it.
So, so that's special to the whole town, and particularly to a lot of us that knew Ed. Thank you for Middleton Police Benevolent Association for something that was long overdue. All right, and I think that's it. No other announcements?
not have
Executive session. Then we'll now take a roll call vote to go into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 3A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police captain. So with that, take
Jeff?
a motion to go into.
Using yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I will be
Motion.
recusing myself, yes. So I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor? Yeah.
Roll
And
call.
we can take a roll call vote?
Jeff?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes?
Yes.
Costa? Myself, yes.
All right, and as I said, I will be recusing myself. So thank you, we're going into executive session, and we will not be returning to open session. Thank you.